Welcome to the AI4EU Cafe. Today, our theme is composing AI pipelines with AI4EU experiments. Speaker is Martin Weiss, Senior AI Solution Architect for Fraunhofer IAIS in Germany. My name is Carmen McWilliams, and I'm the moderator and organizer of this cafe. I'm the director of the company Grassroot Arts and partner in the European AI4EU project. Please take notice that this session will be recorded. No confidential information shall be shared in this cafe session. In this cafe, the speakers express their personal views and opinions. This is not necessarily the official AI4EU opinion. So welcome everybody in this cafe, and if you not know yet what the cafe is about, that's now your chance to find out. One moment. The cafe offers a series of live web sessions which will take place regularly. The cafe is an online forum to gain insights into the European AI scene. Participants get the chance to share knowledge and experiences and meet stakeholders from various areas of AI research and application. So again, on this sunny day, great that you're all here. And now I welcome you, Martin. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Carmen. Hello, all.
Thank you. Yes, this will be an interactive session. So this means you have the chance as participants of this cafe session to write in your questions on the right side. There is a control panel. You can write them in, and after the presentation, I will read your questions to the speaker. And now it's time I shortly introduce Martin, and then I give you the show.
Okay.
Floor. Martin works as Senior AI Solution Architect for Fraunhofer IAIS in Germany. He has more than 25 years experience in developing Java enterprise applications and DevOps on Linux in different roles like developer, architect, or Scrum Master. For Fraunhofer, he works now in the AI4EU project, mainly on AI4EU experiments and the publication process. It's great. Again, so now I will make you the moderator because you are expert. So I'm changing to you. Here, yes. Great, I see it. This is
okay, so did it work?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much, Carmen, for this introduction. Yeah, my name is Martin Wels, and I am making this presentation today about composing AI pipelines with AI4EU experiments. And it will be in two parts. The first part will be a short presentation with slides, and the second part will be a demonstration on the experiment system, which is accessible from this day on for the public. Okay, so then let's start. AI4EU experiments is a fine-tuned instance of Acomos that we run. Acomos is a project of the Linux Foundation. It is completely open source, and we are contributing to it. And AI4EU experiments and Acomos is about quickly and visually composing AI solutions using trained models with published and well-known interfaces. It can also be used to build pipelines for training or for checking or verifying models, though in this presentation we will focus mostly on application pipelines. It can be easily connected, the models can be easily connected with data sets using data brokers and data streams, and it is also prepared for including models and tools for symbolic AI, ethical AI, and verifiable AI. So it's not only about deep learning and machine learning, it's also for other areas of the broad AI field. And what is also very important is that in AI4EU experiments, you can collaborate on projects and on pipelines via discussions, ratings, and work groups. So you can, for example, work in mixed teams with business users and external AI experts to bootstrap the adoption in SMEs or in your work group. So this is also a very important part to start your first AI project and proof of concept. So what is a composite solution, an AI pipeline? Here is the first example. We will, this example will follow us through the whole presentation. So this is a use case from audio mining, where we at Fraunhofer are working a lot. And this is an example with models, with pre-trained models for speech to text, punctuation, speaker recognition. And if you want to change something in the pipeline, because you need to analyze, for example, English text or French, then you can just switch out the models in the pipeline, and you have in very quick time a new version of your pipeline for your specific use case. So this example is also available in our GitHub repository, where the interfaces between the nodes, the interfaces of the models are described here. I think this is a very important part of this idea of AI4EU experiments, to develop reusable interfaces and well-known interfaces for building pipelines. And from my talks so far with users of pipelines, we had the feedback that there is often the need for infrastructure nodes. For example, it could be necessary that a model like this video segmentation needs to be initialized and configured. And indeed, there can be specific models or nodes, utility nodes, infrastructure nodes that can achieve that. The same for persistent volume. So often all the nodes of a pipeline need to have access to a shared memory. This can be on disk, or it can be shared memory in a GPU, for example, which makes it all much faster. So this would be a persistent volume node, and it can also be interesting to connect some of your nodes to diagnostic tools like TensorBoard. So this is all work in progress. We are still working on defining the interfaces for this, but the key to this is that those connections need to be reflected into the protobuf interfaces of the models. So there is work to be done if you want a model to be able to connect to a persistent volume. For example, your model needs to support the right interface for the persistent volume manager to set and to configure the storage. Okay, here we have a screenshot of the design studio and a small configured pipeline. So we have a data broker, the classical iris model, and a data mapper that can change the parameter order of a call. And each node has the protobuf definition of the public interface, and the visual editor matches them by this protobuf definition. So you cannot connect any node with any other node. It is checked by the visual editor if the interfaces match, and this match is done on the basis of the protobuf definition. Now we have talked so much about protobuf definitions, and here is a first example. So like this iris classifier from the previous slide, this is the interface. It is very simple. So in this interface description, we have the input and output data structures. So the input message is the iris data frame, which defines the data about the blossom parameters. And then we have the return data structure, the output data structure, which is the classification value, which specifies which species of an iris is most probable. And last but not least, then the service method has to be defined. So in this case, this is the classify method, which takes the iris data frame as input and returns classify out as output. So, and each model needs to be then packaged into a Docker container, and the communication is done via gRPC to be most interoperable. So Dockerizing your tool is not so complicated. First is you need to specify the public service method with parameters as a protobuf file. Typically, it is called model.proto. Then you need to build a Docker container that runs your model as a microservice and exposes this interface on a public HTTP port. And then you can onboard it on our integration, AI4EU experiment integration system, this one. And we have a lot of tutorials and specifications on our GitHub repository. So let me switch to it. So this is about interfaces. I want to go to the tutorials. So we have very detailed tutorials. For example, the container specification, which describes in detail what the container should deliver. And we have the most simple example is house price prediction. And this contains all the generated code, the model of protobuf definitions, and the Docker file. So, and an extensive description where you can follow along how to build this Docker file and under this container and microservice yourself. Okay, so everything is included here, and we come later in this webinar. We come to the demonstration in AI4EU experiments. So what we want to do in AI4EU is, and especially in AI4EU experiments, to collect interfaces for different tools, so we can broaden the use of reusable pipeline building blocks. That's what we want to achieve, and I think it's unique in Europe, this initiative, to find a way to do this. We are at the beginning of this. We have started, and the challenges are that we need to find the right level of granularity. So how to split your existing tools maybe into reusable models. This is one of the challenges. And the next challenge is also to define interfaces between different AI technologies, like deep learning and, for example, constraint programming or SAT solvers or reasoning, which can be called hybrid AI pipelines. So I think this is quite a new and important topic of the whole AI area and is ongoing research. So I think this is a great chance to start collecting interfaces and test them in AI4EU experiments. That's already possible. So I go back to our GitHub repository where you can see the interfaces. So we have, of course, the interfaces of the tutorials. We have a shell wrapper. We have the audio pipeline from the presentation on the slide earlier. So there are already those protobuf definitions that you can have a look at and which can serve as inspiration. Okay, then we will support you in onboarding and building pipelines. So don't hesitate to contact us at our support email address, which is given here. And we can support you in Dockerizing your tool, defining the protobuf interfaces, onboarding it on Acomos, and of course, building the pipelines. Then last but not least, I want to give also some links to the Acomos documentation, because much of the user interface is, of course, in Acomos. So there's a top level entry. Here's the managed model link, the license editor. So each artifact has to have a license if it's published. About onboarding and the design studio, which is called Acco Compose. Okay, so much for the theoretical part of this presentation. And we will now switch to AI4EU experiments. So for this, I need to sign in. Okay, so here we start with a first view of the marketplace. But before we start, I want to talk about the limitation of this version. So, for example, it is also in the tutorials. Currently, there's no single sign-on possible with the AI4EU main website. So if you have already registered on the AI4EU homepage, unfortunately, you have to register again with AI4EU experiments. We are working on this, that there will be a single sign-on, but currently it's not available. And the second step is that deployment is not yet possible. So it's not, as a conclusion from this, it's not possible to execute them. So it is possible to onboard, to manage a model and to configure pipelines, to compose pipelines, but it's not yet possible to deploy them. That's still work in progress. We are working on this. Okay, so this is important to know. And then I will start with the onboarding. No, we will have a look at the marketplace. So there are already some of the examples that I showed you. So for example, there is the audio pipeline and the models that belong to this audio pipeline. We have, for example, I want to see more of the models at the same time. So in this catalog, I can filter by tags. So if I click on tutorial, for example, I see both tutorials that are mentioned in the GitHub repository are both onboarded. Maybe you want to look only at the audio mining models, then you find them by clicking on the audio mining tag. Okay, so I have to untag the tutorials. Okay, so all these models belong to the audio mining pipeline. And what is interesting to note is that you have, for example, for punctuation, you have an English trained model and a German trained model. It could be more, also French and Italian. So that it is easy for a user to build a pipeline to the specific use case that he is facing. Okay, then let's start onboarding. As you can see, there are different ways of onboarding models in Acomos. onboarding by web is about a specific Acomos format, which is called a bundle. This is only used in AI4EU experiments for very specific nodes, utility nodes like the data broker. What we recommend is to do onboarding Dockerized model URI. So that means you onboard a Dockerized model, a Docker container that resides in a Docker registry, for example, a Docker hub, and you want to onboard it and make it available in the marketplace without uploading the whole container into Acomos. So this is the recommended way to do it. So for example, we try to use sentiment analysis 2. I do this only for demonstration purposes. And it is then, it is on Docker Hub, docker.com, port 443. And the image is this one. So we have this in let me copy this. And the tag is version 2. Then I have to upload the protobuf definition. So I'm here in the house price prediction and the model.proto is here. I have to click on upload. Now it is prepared for inclusion. And then what it is important, you should always include a license profile. Because if you want to publish your model into the marketplace to make it visible for everyone, this is a needed step. And you can, for example, select a pre-configured license, Apache 2. And then, as you can see, the onboarding model button is still disabled. It is because you need to modify the license profile. So you need to fill out, for example, the company name and other details. I won't do this now in this presentation. It takes too much time. But after that, I am now able to click on onboard model, and this will do the actual onboarding and make it available in the section My Models. So it will be then available in My Models, and that will give us now. So I can see here all my models, see all. I can do also the second on the second. If you want to have a look at the, for example, we take the house price prediction as an example. So if I click on this model, I see the model description. I can see the license profile. And here I can see the signature, which means this is the protobuf definition, which is important for pipeline building. So if you don't see anything here, it won't be possible to use the model into the design studio. Okay, so the documents, I included here the tutorials and the specification. And model artifacts are the things that have been onboarded. For example, the protobuf definition, there's a log file, the license, and the reference to the image. And of course, they are author and publisher details. And the next step would be then to manage my model. So I can here, which is very important, I can share it with my team. So this is the place where I can decide I want to work with others on this model or on a pipeline, and I can share it with other users. So here can I do it? And then it's also possible to publish the model. There's a lot of things to fill out. Here is important that usually, okay, yeah, it's already published, so I can only choose the catalog that it hasn't been published to. but it is important to use the public catalog, not the restricted. Okay, then the other things are currently not interesting. We can go now into the, okay, no, before that, so if you want to publish a model, you need to fill out all this, and then you can submit to publication. And there is a quite simple review process. So you submit it to publication, and a user with the role of reviewer will then have a look at it and decides if it's appropriate or not, and will approve the publication request or deny it. So in this way, we make sure that only high quality models are published. Okay, so let's then go into the design studio. It is called Acco Compose. And here we want to start with, for example, the audio pipeline. So I filter for all the audio models, and we would start with the audio file broker as a data source. So I drag it to the canvas, and I see here the handles, the ports that show what are the input and output ports of this model which can be connected. So audio file broker, then the next step would be the audio segmentation. And if I hover over one of the ports, I can see which port matches. So those two work well together, and then I can connect them together. Then the next step would be audio speech to text English, for example. Here those two ports match, so I can connect them together. The next step is maybe I want to add punctuation, English punctuation. Where is it? Audio punctuation English, it's right here. Okay, I need to zoom in a little. And finally, the last step is then the audio dialog creator, which collects all the audio segments together in the right order and creates a dialog from it. So I connect it to the dialog creator. So, and then I want to add also speaker recognition. So audio speaker recognition. And now the question is, where does that fit in? So I hover over the port and I see, okay, audio segmentation is the docking point. I connect it here, and the output should be connected to, maybe I can make it a little bigger to make it visible. So I click on the output port of the speaker recognition, and I see in the audio dialog creator is the matching port. And now I have created the pipeline that you've seen in my presentation, and I can save it now. I have already done it, so because in this case I won't do it. So this is a more complex example of how to build this pipeline. We can also, I don't want to save it. We want to create a new one. Or we can use the generic data broker, for example. And I need to clear the filter. For example, we want to use the Keras iris model. Now I connect them together. And for the generic data broker, I can configure it further. For example, I can select if it's a data broker for a CSV file, for a JSON file, or for an SQL database. In this case, we select a CSV file. So high house price predict, yes, we have this test file, for example. Then I need to decide if the first row contains fields or names, and then I'm done. And by this, I have now configured the generic data broker. Okay, so in this way, I have built a very simple pipeline. I can, if I want to do, for example, ensemble methods, I can also add another model to this and connect it to the data broker. And in this way, I can compose easily pipelines from the existing models. So this basically concludes my presentation, and I would then give the moderation back to Carmen and start with the question and answers. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Martin. This was very interesting. And so I would like to ask the first and most striking question: how do I access this? This was basically in the chat all the time. How do I get to this, what you are showing right now?
Okay, so this is on the slides. Here is the URL. Maybe I can I post this in the chat?
Yes, you can.
So let me try it.
Yes, chat.
Send in, okay. Okay, so did this work? I hope so.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think you can also get the slides afterwards, but now you have it immediately. This is the link to our experiment system.
Great. That was the question, the second one. Do we get the slides? Yes. We get the slides. I can. Good, great.
Yes,
that was the second.
Yes. I'm
So you
happy
have
to
it.
share the slides.
Okay, super. And the third for me is like when I would like to donate or give reusable components like reusable interfaces, no?
Okay.
Because I am an interface developer. It's there, do I have to be a member? Do I have to pay money? Can I just do, I mean, can anybody contribute things?
Yes, yes. So we are happy to take your contribution, and we have, of course, our we have our interfaces repository. You can clone it and then issue a pull request. So then in this way, we imagine this to grow. So we are happy to take your contributions to interfaces. There is no fee whatsoever. It's completely open.
Okay, good. So it's an open marketplace, no? An open place.
Yes. So currently it's all completely open. Of course, it is possible to also submit commercial resources and together with a commercial license. But Acomos itself does not enforce this. So you need to, it's a matter between the two parties that want to do business. But AI4EU experiments mandates that you have a license, could be commercial or not, together with a resource that is published.
Okay. So now I go to more questions from the audience, from the participants. Hello again. Thank you for your questions. Here comes Alessandro Safiotti. You mentioned the possibility to use symbolic AI tools and compose them. Can you elaborate on this, please?
Yes, I think, for example, an interesting example would be to combine constraint programming and deep learning methods to fight the problem of deepfakes, for example, or adversarial AI. And for this, we need to find interfaces. And for this, I would need your input. I would be happy to work with you, especially Alessandro and Work Package 7, to define the right interfaces for it. And now we have the possibility to really configure the pipelines on our AI4EU experiment system, even if there's no service completely implemented. Because if we want to, for example, what I did for the audio mining pipeline, we don't have all the Docker containers for this yet, but I can onboard kind of as a placeholder Docker container. And by this, it is possible to just onboard the protobuf definition and try it out in the visual editor. So this is the idea, how we can prototype the interaction between different models and different technologies. That's now possible. So I'm really happy for this question. Thank you, Alexander.
And then comes Jill Fayad. Will deployment be developed and available as well with computing capabilities?
Yes. So yes and no. Yes, for deployment, and AI4EU experiments is about configuring and doing the deployment to a user-provided environment. So you as a user have to provide a Kubernetes environment where the Docker containers can be deployed. This is what we will provide. But since there can be a lot of computing power involved in all this, it is not possible for AI4EU to provide in a general way computing resources. Mm-hmm. There might be some in a very small amount, but generally speaking, AI4EU experiments is about configuring the pipeline and then deploy it to a user-provided execution environment. That's the whole idea.
Okay, thank you. And I have more questions.
Very well, that's good.
Okay. Arne Munk-Ellingson, hello Arne. I tried to register, create an account, but did not receive the verification email. Is the email configuration for this Acmos instance working?
Okay, then we have to look. So in our tests, it worked. So we need to have a look.
And you said before there's a hotline. I just come back to this again. And in your PowerPoint, there was a hotline. Also, yes. That if you have questions, I mean, this is, for example, now typical that you have a question, whatever technical question, something doesn't work. There is now this email, no? This email hotline. Yes. So one may ask these kind of typical questions. There will be probably other things coming up when you're trying it yourself. We cannot fix it here in a webinar, but that's important that you know there is like support.
Yes, it is also at the bottom of the AI4EU. If you can give me this the screen, maybe.
You have the screen. If not, I give it to you again. It should be you.
It should be. Then, if you have a look at my screen, you can see at the bottom on the right-hand side of the website there is our support email address. Mm-hmm. So it's everything on the website. It's also, we have the links, for example, to the interfaces right here, and on the homepage you have also the link into the tutorials.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. And now further, Philip, do you use NIFI pipeline in Acomos ML workbench, machine language workbench?
No, not yet. No, we are focusing on the Visual Design Studio, and the other things we currently do not provide.
Okay, and another one, Jill Fayad, will it support PyTorch beside TensorFlow?
Oh, it depends what you can put into your Docker container. So we are completely language, programming language and framework agnostic, as long as you can package it into a Docker container and connect it with a protobuf gRPC interface to the outer world.
Okay, so now comes a question. Hi, Dimitrios. Hello. Dimitrios Galanis asks, each AI service is described with a protofile. But how you describe the workflows, pipelines in Acomos? Which workflow definition language do you use?
Well, I'm not sure if I get the point, because of course the design studio is the description, and maybe to give a more detailed insight into the technical realization, the design studio creates a JSON file which is called blueprint.json, which describes which models are connected by which ports.
Mm-hmm. So maybe, Dimitrios, if it's not if you need to know more, please just rewrite your question and send in. So now one more from Jill Fayad. Yeah, here comes Dimitrios. It is your own custom format. Is it your own?
Well, it's yes, it's from Acomos. So it's not like a business process managing language or something like this. It's this workflow definition is a custom solution made by Acomos. Yes.
Okay. So Dimitrios said he asked it because there are languages like Common Workflow, Lang language, and so on. Okay, thank you. Then here, Jill, are the license terms configurable by the user identity? For example, beyond Apache, like CC?
Yes, you are completely free to configure your license. So there are, for convenience, there are some templates, but you can edit in the license editor and the license profile editor. You are free to edit the license to your needs.
Okay. Yes. So please, if anybody has more questions, please write them down. I will have now my question. My big question, of course, is how do you plan to attract the users? How do you think SMEs developers will come to do what you provide? Do you have any ideas?
Yes, I hope by word of mouth, of course. We are a big project, and that everybody talks about it and attracts new users, and also by events like this one and other events that AI4EU is hosting. So, and also, of course, via the AI4EU homepage.
Okay, super. Yes. Okay, then we are coming to an end. It's like, I have one more question. Andrea Micheli. Once a pipeline is composed, how can it be exported and used? Can it be used outside of AI4EU?
That's a very good question. And the idea is to have a one-click deployment to a Kubernetes environment. So you can you have to configure in your profile where your Kubernetes environment or cloud environment is reachable, And then you will be able to deploy the pipeline to this environment with one click. So it will be a general Kubernetes environment, which is independent from AI4EU experiments or from Acromos.
Okay, thank you. So I thank you very much. We are now slowly closing our AI4EU cafe session today. I will now make advertisement for the next one, so hold on for a small moment until I can show my little next one. And so this was you. No, my little advertisement comes now, because in June we had many, so we are going now slowly in the summertime, and we have only 2 more until the summer break. And the next one will be on 15th of July, and that will be with the speaker Rob from Kranenburg, and he's the founder of Console IoT, and he will be with us with his talk, Disposable Identities are Elementals in IoT. So we are looking forward for this next session and hope you are joining us again. So if you have topics or speakers you can recommend to us, feel free to contact especially me, Carmen McWilliams, and you will get the recording afterwards on YouTube. After Martin said it's okay, you have to give the green light.
Yes.
And it will be online. And
I'm very optimistic that I will do it.
Just say you want to have the presentation. Just drop an email. You want to have it, you get it. Okay. So have a nice afternoon, and thank you again for joining us. And here also Marcelo says, thank you, Martin and Carmen. Thank you, Marcelo.
Thank you very much to all. Thank you for your questions. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.